This video is not about running, it's about Norway. Except it's not really about Norway, it's about saying thank you. I first, as a child, had heard of Norway or came across Norway, and because my father worked overseas, he worked for Guinness overseas all of his life, and he was sent to Jamaica. And we as a family moved to Jamaica, and we went to school, or I went to high school in Jamaica. Now, the problem was my mother did not like to fly. And Jamaica is not exactly next door to Ireland. So the first time we went on a regular ship, but we had to go by sea to the United Kingdom and then down through England on the boat or on the train. And then we had to get another boat to Jamaica. And it wasn't a very good ship. I think it had many problems in the mid-Atlantic. It was called the Begonia, made the news a couple of years after we were on it in the mid-1970s. But my mother then decided that the next summer what we would do is we would go by banana boat from Jamaica to Ireland, and then we would go by banana boat from Ireland. Well, they went to England and then onwards, and then we would do the repeat at the end of the summer. And my mother loved the banana boat. It was run by Norwegians. So you had it wasn't a passenger vessel by any manner of means. Its purpose was to carry bananas from Jamaica to Europe. And I think in order to avoid the Norwegian crew getting incredibly bored, they took passengers on. They took 8 to 12 passengers. This was the 1970s. There weren't any TVs. There weren't any radios. Well, there was radio, but not that we would listen to it in the middle of the sea. There was a tiny pool about the size of a jacuzzi filled with seawater, and there was deck shuffle, some sort of shuffle deck thing, deck quoits I think it was called, and that was it. Bored doesn't begin to explain how I was on that vessel. My mother loved it. It was fantastic. The food was fantastic. My mother loved food every day, and then dining with the Norwegian sailors. I remember learning the word skål. But yeah, I mean, my mother enjoyed it immensely. I'd say I was bored out of my brains. My mother would read a book a day. And anyway, we got there. Spent some summer in Ireland before we had to come back. And I remember going by train. Again, we left the house and then we went by ship to the UK, and then I guess we probably went to Liverpool or maybe we went to Holyhead in Wales, and then down to Sheerness in Kent, where we boarded our banana boat. This time it was carrying other goods to Jamaica. And we set out for the 15 days or 16 days, or whatever it was, on the way to Jamaica on this cargo vessel. Bored out of my brains. Yet again, I can still remember seeing Jamaica, and Jamaica, it's lovely to arrive in Kingston. And going down the gangplank. And I could see my dad down below on the quays. And I was dying to see him, and going up and saying to my dad said, "Oh, how was the trip?" And I said, "Oh, well, we were on board for 15 days, and how about you?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I flew out this morning." My mother after that relented, so we flew with a very nervous mother. Back to Ireland. Every time we had to go back, we flew, and then we got sent to boarding school so I could avoid flying with my mother, and flew with the brother instead. But yeah, that was a big. But the Norwegian crew was fantastic. They were very friendly, and the maritime nation. We became well aware of my two uncles were marine engineers, so it felt very familial on the voyage. The next time I came to Norway was the only time before this time, was about 10 years ago. And hang on, it was longer than that. It was 2009, I think it was. And I was doing my master's about Irish design organisations. And should you wish to download it, what is the optimal structure for organisations representing design and designers on the island of Ireland? Anyway, I decided to write this dissertation. And so I did, and I went off and I interviewed all the heads of the various different design organisations around Ireland. I then interviewed Michael Thompson in the UK, went to London. I thought, right, I've gone to London, that's pretty far. That's okay, that should get this master's over the line. Little did I know. I went back to it turned out I'd also just started working in what's now the Technological University of Dublin, formerly DIT. And I go back to meet my supervisor, who is my new boss, Kieran. And I see something on his desk, and it's about Latvia or Lithuania or something. I said, oh yes, I was talking to Michael Thompson, and he mentioned Jan Stavik in Norway, who was head of the Norwegian Design Council, former president of the Bureau of European Design Associations. And I'm prattling on, and Kieran stops, looks at me and says, go to Norway. Interview Jan Stavik. So I good crikey. So I arranged to come to Norway, and it's getting very late. It's early September, I think, and the dissertation was due in on the 22nd of September. So I frantically, in those days, money was really tight, so I decided to fly Ryanair. And so I'm flying Ryanair to Oslo, or to somewhere near Oslo. If you fly Ryanair, you'll know what that means. So anyway, I book Ryanair, and I haven't flown Ryanair before. My brother used to be a director of Ryanair a long time ago. So he used to call it Brian Air because his name's Brian. But anyway, I go out to Dublin Airport, and I'm the early bird type. I'm rarely, if ever, late. And so I head out to Dublin Airport, and I eagerly sit down where I see the sign and the gate to go to Norway, to Oslo, or somewhere not very near Oslo. And I'm sitting down, I take out a book and I start reading, and I'm waiting, I'm 2 hours early or something like that, make sure absolutely everything's okay, handbags, I've done all that. And I'm there, and then I notice people stand up, I stand up, and then I look up at the board, and it no longer says Oslo, it says somewhere else. Nowhere near Oslo. And I panic. It's now mid-afternoon, I'm supposed to be interviewing Jan Stavik the following morning. And I run downstairs to see where the new gate is that they've not announced. I'm not wearing headphones. And anyway, I see this sort of plate glass window and this 737 reversing out, disappearing down the tarmac. And I'm thinking, oh crikey, what am I going to do now? So if you've ever tried to leave an airport when you're not in arrivals, when you're in departures, it's very confusing, because all of the signage is designed to sell you stuff and get you to the gates. Sell you as much stuff as possible, get you to the gates, and that's it. There's no other function, it seems to me. So I'm in a bit of a panic state, as you can imagine. And I'm looking around to find my way out. And eventually I find my way out. There's obviously a way out, but eventually I find my way out. It's not signposted, but I find my way out. And I'm now in the arrivals hall in Dublin Airport. And I go over to the Ryanair desk to vent my fury. Anyway, it turns out I see about 25 people queuing, and I know it's going to be hopeless. I'm going to queue for the 25. I'll be the 26th person, and they're going to say, "Look, it's all your fault. You should have kept an eye on the board." And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Who knows? One thing I knew, I wasn't going to win any arguments. So I thought, right, okay, I've got to do something else. And I see an SAS queue. So I think, right, I'll go over to the SAS and I'll ask them, have they got a flight to Norway? So I go across and I say to this guy, have you got a flight to Norway? And he says, now don't tell anybody I told you this, but we do have a flight to Norway, but we code share with Lufthansa. So nip over there to Lufthansa, book it in there. I tell everybody this. So I nip across, and I talk to the guy at Lufthansa, and he books me on whatever it is, but I'm not paying too much attention because I'm so panicked that I forget to ask if there's a meal or there's anything, or I don't even know where we're flying to. I mean, we're flying via some German city as far as I can tell, but I don't really, I'm in a flap. So I get the ticket and I go through departures, and I think, oh, well, I better eat something just in case. So I decide I'll go up to Burger King. So I got a Burger King in Dublin Airport. I took some pictures for B-roll at the time I was here. So I'm up in Terminal 1, and I go to Burger King, and some Whopper arrives out, and I'm just about to chomp on this Whopper, and the fire alarm goes off. And here, the fire alarm's gone off. Now, I've studied enough of these things to know when the fire alarm goes off, you drop stuff and you go. So I drop everything and I go see the little green man, which means the exit sign around. I go through the door swings behind me. I'm now on a staircase. I go down 3 flights of stairs. There's another door. I open the door shuts behind me, and I'm on the apron of Dublin Airport, and I'm looking at all the airplanes. And there's nobody else there. There's only me. And I'm thinking, what? So I think, right, I've already missed one flight today, and I can see my flight over there somewhere. I can see a Lufthansa plane, And I think, right, I got to get over to the plane. I mean, I can't just stand here all day. So I head off towards the plane, and walking along towards this plane that I can see. There's an octagonal kind of pier in Dublin Airport. I'm wandering over there, and I see one of these guys coming along, one of those things that tow baggage, and they always bounce. For some reason, they're always bouncing up and down. He's bouncing up and down, and I wave at him, and he waves back. I think, oh well, so I go a bit further, and I go about, I don't know, another couple of minutes, and another guy comes along in one of his bouncy yokes, and I wave at him, and he suddenly slams on the brakes, slews it around, says, "Get in. You're not wearing a high-vis jacket." So I said, okay. So I get in, and he drives back to where I was. He says, right, you can't be on the apron without a high-vis. So I'm standing there thinking, where am I going to get a high-vis? And then this guy pulls in a Suzu Trooper, a big Jeep with, flashing lights, fire marshal. And he gets out, and I say to him, look, I did the plane and blah, blah, blah. And he says, "Shut up, I'm trying to deal with a fire." So I shut up. And then he suddenly, I can see the cogs are whirring around in his head, and he goes, "Hang on, you're a passenger." I said, "Yes, I am a passenger. That's what I've been trying to tell you." So he says, "Stay here, don't move. You can't be on the tarmac without a high vis. Stay there, someone will come." So I stayed there another 10 minutes. Tiny little airport police car suddenly turns around and says, "You in." And he drives me off to my aeroplane, and got me on really safely. I got there, no problem. I interviewed Jan Stavik, all went well. Kieran was happy. And so a couple of things I learned from that is I never ever at an airport have headphones on when I'm queuing. I'm obsessively looking every 10 minutes at the sign. And I turn up in Dublin Airport. This flight, I've got SAS, and I'm in Terminal 1, the exact same terminal, and I'm there. And I'm checking, and I'm making sure the plane is coming in at the gate and all this sort of stuff. And this woman runs up with her family of 3, and she says, "I'm looking for the Ryanair flight. We were sitting right there, and it was on the board." And exactly the same thing happened. So I guess, experience. So that was, this trip, this time to Norway has gone absolutely swimmingly. And as always, there's lots of people I'd like to thank. First of all, the people who invited me, Her Excellency Claire Buckley, Irish Ambassador to Norway, for the invite for Bloomsday, and for the Deputy Head of Mission, Claire Thompson and David Toms, who were superb company in Oslo and made me very relaxed for the trip. Then in the running, I have to thank Chris for being mad enough to think, I know what I need to do. I know what my life needs. I need to be running right beside that guy for 5 hours, listening to his crap. Anyway, I'd like to thank Chris so much for getting the ball rolling. I had a whale of a time, and see you further on down the road.